and welcome to Broads and Books. I'm Erin.
And I'm Amy, and this is episode... I keep getting tripped up on these three numerals together. This is 113. 113. 113.
Correct.
And the name of this episode, 113, is about damn time.
It is about damn time.
It's about damn time I figure out how to say three numbers in a row.
I mean...
What is my issue there, do you think?
I don't know.
It's something about the one. If it was like a 203.
Yeah. Maybe that's
it.
113. Well, and also when it's in the teens still, it's weird.
Yeah.
Like 113, 113. I can get there.
Listen, I'm a 44-year-old woman, and I don't know how to say 113.
Well, to be fair, when in your life have you ever had to say that out loud? Probably not since like second grade.
Probably not since I was reciting numerals as a child.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically we're calling this my pick, but it was actually your idea, the last theme.
Well, we
did
can
a
count this
different
as a
one.
mutual
That's
pick
what I think,
because it comes from our patron saint, Lizzo.
And it was, if you haven't seen the video for this, please go watch it.
I would tell you it features a stressed and sexy support group, which in and of itself...
I loved every second of that.
Yeah.
And it's just Lizzo in every best possible way that Lizzo could be. And it's everything you want in a Lizzo song.
And it was about damn time we heard from Lizzo.
We
needed it. We needed it.
We did. We needed it more than we even knew.
But what did you like about this song in particular, Erin?
I think I liked the message. I liked the idea of, coming back better, coming back stronger. I liked that, especially knowing that she's, definitely had ups and downs in terms of the public eye and how people perceive her to be. What I really liked about the video was the idea that they downplayed her makeup and outfit and stuff at the beginning. Like she just sort of appeared as regular as you can for a...
If you're Lizzo.
Yeah, if you're Lizzo. Yeah. And then, of course we got the flashy outfits and stuff later. But I loved that too because I thought it went well with the song. And I would say some people would probably think that's a risk. Like I don't want to show myself that way.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know what it is about her, but those songs just make me feel good.
They make you feel damn good.
So good.
Yeah, I like the idea that she says basically to the effect of like, I've been through some stuff and now I might be better.
I might be better. I like too that the way she says it. I might be better.
Yeah.
I'm not going to commit that I am because I don't
There's
want
a possibility.
Get any ideas.
Yeah, I don't want you to have expectations of me being better because I might
not be great.
Be fine. Yeah.
But I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. Also, we all know what my parenting style is. I watched this with Mason and he got done and he said, "That was amazing."
Oh,
and then he was like, "We need to watch it again." And he wanted it on a loop. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, A, he's your child.
Yeah.
And B, he is just a treasure that needs to be protected at all costs.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. He loves Lizzo as much as we do. He knows all the words to the song.
Which is wonderful.
Yes. And I play the unedited version. So, yes, he sings along. But you know what? My 8-year-old is smart enough to know not to say those words at school.
And if you're going to learn those words, you might as well learn them from Lizzo.
In context of the
song. Because she uses them properly.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, I liked this idea as a theme.
Yeah,
too.
It's so great.
Living through some shit, maybe being better for it.
Yes, I might be better.
Might be better. Again, no expectations.
It's actually kind of a really great passive-aggressive way to answer something. Like, hey, I really don't like it when you do that. You know what? I'll work on that. I might be better. You know what? I can see your point, and
that's a
check in next week. I might be better.
Yeah. No promises.
Promises.
And also, I don't want to give you the satisfaction of committing to being better.
No.
Because you're probably wrong about whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. You're right.
I might be better.
That's a good comeback. So, Erin, got a question for you.
Yeah.
Thinking about the idea of about damn time, I imagine this may hit different for different aged listeners.
Agreed.
Right? So what do you think? Does it mean something different for if you're in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, so on?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's a great anthem anywhere, but I feel like in your 20s, it's like about damn time is relating to like, oh, we got to get to the club. Or like,
I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, we got to get our drinks. Our drink order better come now.
Why did that pizza not come yet? Didn't we order it like an hour and a half ago? Meanwhile,
I've been waiting for this beer for 30 minutes.
Forever.
Yeah.
like, oh, we need to get the club and dance to this song. Like, that's your first thought in your 20s is like, I can't wait to hit the dance floor.
And then it's about damn time that here I am on the dance floor.
Yeah, here I am. It's about damn time. It's Thursday night during a week and I'm out partying. Like
it's 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I would say in your 30s, it's more like life goals, career.
Yeah.
You know, you're more focused on like, okay, I think I'm supposed to be buying a house or I'm supposed to be getting promoted. So it's about damn time, you know, I do some of these things. I feel like in your 40s, speaking from, you know, experience as we have, I feel like you're sitting in your truth a little more. So you're saving this for really important things. Like you're not just about damn timing everything.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, first female in the Oval Office, about damn time. That type of thing.
So you're parsing it out for the things that really merit it.
Yeah. You're not just using it all the time because you're also old enough to know that there's going to be a lot of things that are just disappointing.
Constantly disappointing.
Yeah. A lot of phrases where this won't apply.
No. Most of the time, political news is not about damn time.
Right.
It's the antithesis. It's like, please don't let this happen again.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you could say it, you know, when somebody comes around to the right thought process.
Yes.
Like, oh, I realized something. You could say about damn time. But the problem is now in the society that we're in, and particularly over the last week, it feels like I can't even say about damn time because you're late.
You are so late.
You're late.
Why is your outrage just now?
Why?
Why?
Yes.
We've
Why?
seen this coming for a long time.
Yes.
And in case you haven't guessed, we're talking about the leaked Roe v. Wade opinion.
Yeah. And it's like we had a discussion prior to this about how all these men that we know are getting, which is great. I appreciate the outrage. You know, pour it into the, you know, Planned Parenthood, those types of groups that need it. But it feels like this is a surprise to them.
Yeah, it does. And it's my reaction was disappointment at that.
Yeah.
Disappointment at the outrage that felt like, oh my God, we never knew this was happening.
Right. They're acting like this leak was the craziest thing. You're acting like
Just
the leak
shocking.
came and said, we know exactly who killed Kennedy and we've been hiding it forever. And everyone's like, this is new information.
Right.
Like,
this is not brand new information.
First of all, we knew this case was coming up.
Yes.
Second of all, if you haven't been paying attention in the past few years to Supreme Court nominees and placements, you knew this was coming.
And we have been telling people this has been coming
Yes.
for years as politics has been happening in this way.
Yes.
So it means that also you haven't been listening to us.
Right. And I hate to do this. You go backwards, you know, and we had Supreme Court hearings or, you know, placement hearings, and we're asking questions about, you know, do you like beer?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, the important
Then we
stuff.
get an honest to God, good candidate. And
damn
we
genius.
ask things like, are babies racist? And I'm sorry, but
I forgot about that.
here we
That
are.
was- yeah.
Here we are.
we
If you are
are.
surprised that we are taking steps backwards,
Yep.
I implore you
To see the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
look around.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things that I really love this week is Republicans' indignation at the leak.
Yes,
Not
not
at
at
the
the
information.
news.
We will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. Like I saw an interview or a clip of Ted Cruz, and he's like, that
God.
person should spend years, and he emphasized years multiple times in jail. And I was like, oh, okay. So
that's the
insurrection,
priority.
Not so much.
Insurrection is fine. But leaking some news that we already knew was coming, that deserves years in jail. Great.
Trust has been violated. And what I wanted to say to him is like, I hate to tell you this, Ted Cruz, but whoever did that, and when they do find out, that person's name is going to be in every history textbook. And with any luck and any amount of answering of prayers, yours won't appear anywhere.
Oh, God, that'd be wonderful.
So-
can we just forget he ever existed?
I mean, what's he done that's even history making? He's not going to be. It's
Besides
not like,
throwing his daughters under the bus.
yeah. He hasn't done anything in his tenure that's going to be in like a general
That's
history
a
book.
good point.
But this person probably is going to
Probably.
be. And I say hats off to you.
Yeah, whoever you are. I hope it's like a janitor or something that just went into an office and was like, this is going to be good.
I hope we just find out that it was like a mistake and Brett Kavanaugh just accidentally faxed it to one of his friends.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Like
did
he was
it!
like sending it as a joke, like, check it out, what I'm doing.
Anti-abortion kicker this weekend. Like,
let's have some beer.
Yeah.
We like beer.
I like beer. Love you, Matt Damon.
Whew, we went on a little road there, but
we did.
There it is.
It was important.
Yeah.
You expected to hear from us on that, I think.
It's about damn time you believed us and what we've been saying about this for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming back stronger. We like the maybe.
Yes.
Do you have an experience that made you feel stronger but was difficult at the time?
Generally, age. Like everything. Everything in life feels hard, and then over time you realize it's making you stronger, right?
Yeah.
But I think specifically, every rejection I've ever got for writing.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
It sucks so much.
Yeah.
And the accumulation of that rejection sucks so much. And me, I'm a very organized person, so I keep everything in Excel sheets. And once you start looking at the quantity of rejections, it gets very overwhelming and depressing, right?
Yeah.
But, over time, like you realize that makes you a stronger writer.
Yeah.
You realize it makes you more resilient as hard as that is.
Yeah.
You realize you just got to keep going and trying new ways. And I'm still getting rejected constantly.
Yeah.
And it still sucks. And you just got to keep going and hopefully making me stronger in the same time.
That's a good example.
Can't lie. It doesn't feel great. And there's been many times just a random rejection for really something I didn't care that much about comes in at the wrong moment. Like you're checking your email.
Yeah.
Just in a moment where you're feeling vulnerable about other things and that hits you, that comes into your inbox and you're like, I want to burn everything to the ground.
Yeah.
I want to leave this house and just run off into the wilderness and let the cats, become king of this territory.
Yeah, well, they're going to take over. Yeah, they're going to claim this as their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I can get there.
That's where I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But, hopefully stronger, right?
Yes.
So back to Lizzo.
Oh, gosh. National treasure.
There's an excellent line about what is it? Something Gorilla Clock.
Yeah.
It's thick 30. Right.
I
love it.
Come on. Great.
So on brand for Lizzo, right? And also on brand for the body neutrality movement, which we've talked a lot about.
Yes, so much.
What do you think is one of the most surprising things you've learned about diet culture in the last few years?
I think that for me, the most surprising part is it's kind of two parts. One, it's how much it permeates. Like it's in everything.
Everything.
And like even with all the reading and all the talking we've done and all the, sources that we've looked at, I still know that my brain defaults to certain things.
Absolutely it does.
And I consider myself to be a somewhat savvy consumer, but I can tell you that I'm going to call it big nutrition instead of big pharma.
Oh, I like it.
Pulled one over on all of us because all these like really strong held truths that we believed about weight and relation to sickness, relation to illness, relation to sleep, all this stuff was funded by companies like Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers that had a vested interest in getting you to buy their product, which I feel like nowadays we're so much smarter about that. Like we're like, well, who funded that study? I don't believe that. Like we don't want to believe things that could very well be true. Like I don't believe that bees pollinate flowers.
I don't believe that climate change is real.
Yeah, exactly. Without tons of evidence. But this we just blindly accept. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That is still shocking to me.
It is shocking that you're right. It permeates absolutely everything.
Everything.
And it permeates like marketing campaigns for products that have nothing to do with it. I've also like when I'm rewatching shows, for example, that as a culture we've probably advanced over the years, right? Like rewatching Lost, for example, and the amount of fat jokes they make about Hurley each time. I'm like, wait, what? First off, did Jorge Garcia sign off on this amount of fat jokes? Yeah. This seems mean. Like, did he sign up for this continual rejection and abuse? And also just, it's lazy. It's lazy writing, but it's always there. And it's always supposed to be played for laughs. And so even like a phenomenal show like Lost falls prey to that kind of stuff, right?
100%.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Just everywhere.
I've told you that I'm rewatching it. Mike never saw The Office. So we're rewatching it from the beginning, but I'm having the same experience. I mean, that started long enough ago that you're like, oh, I don't know about that. And that's great. It's good to see the progress, but it's still
It also reminds you like, oh, it reminds me of like, I used to believe that not so long ago.
Yes.
I used to, think that way not so long ago.
Yes.
And yikes, that's rough.
It is.
Yeah.
And it also reminds you of like how much we have to progress still.
Yes.
Like how much of that is still so ingrained and so part of the conversation, even when it's not supposed to be, or even when it's like underneath, especially this time of year, I feel like, weather changing, you always see this, but it was from Emily, I lost her last name, Burnout.
Nagoski.
Yeah. That she has that quote that's like, there's no such thing as a summer body. It's the bikini industry complex that's been gaslighting you all these years. It's like, yes, exactly. And that's why we need more of Lizzo. People like Lizzo. We need more of Lizzo.
Yes.
Keep reminding us that that's not the way that it has to be.
That it's always thick 30.
But thinking about that, I mean, that's a lot to put on one person, I recognize. That I just lay it at your feet.
Lizzo, it's all your responsibility now.
Do it.
Yep.
And that's also what I liked about this song, because there's this assumption about her that she's sort of impervious to criticism or doesn't care. And I like that this song is kind of saying, it's not that it gets to me, but I'm just still trying.
Yeah.
So I think that we kind of assume that strong people are always strong. But two things can also be true at the same time.
And usually are.
Yes. What are two conflicting truths about you?
I think that I am confident and that I am insecure.
Yes. Okay.
So, for example, I have always been confident in the fact that I knew I never wanted to have kids.
Yeah.
I was very secure in that fact from a pretty young age. And no matter how much pushback I got from people, and I've gotten a lot of pushback from people, people I know and random strangers, over time, that's never wavered. Like, I knew that was something about me, both that I didn't want to have kids and that I didn't want to get married either. Like, I just didn't want either of those. Pretty much everything else, I'm very insecure about my choices, about like the things that I need to do. And I recognize that some of that, now that I know that I'm autistic, I recognize that some of that is like this internalized voice of what I should be doing. You can't be too different. You can't be too weird, that kind of stuff. But then I know a lot of it is just being a woman too, where we are constantly told, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And usually it's contradictory. So you don't know what the hell to do.
It's weird because we raise females to have this sort of ingrained, like, are you sure?
Yes.
And we raise males to be like, you don't have to have any evidence, plow ahead.
And you don't have to be prepared for this job. Just
you got
take
it. You got it. Run. Go. Be free.
You just need a good attitude.
Yeah.
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 Maybe. You don't
You're
have
a good
to have
trier.
one.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yes.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. And so I think so many things contribute to that. But, no matter how confident you may be in some areas of your life, you can still be very insecure at the same time. Two truths that coexist.
That coexist in the same person.
And they're contradictory.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that.
I'm a human being.
Should we just end there? That's it this week.
That'd be the end quote. And I'm a human being.
And I'm a human being. Out. Happy reading.
I like it.
See you on the flip side.
No, let's go ahead and talk about some books.
Maybe I'll be better.
Maybe. Don't hold your breath.
I mean, really no promises.
So, good theme.
Yes.
Lots to think about
so
here.
Much to dig into.
So much to dig into. So, for fiction, I went to one of my favorites, Margaret Atwood. And her book from 2001 called The Blind Assassin.
Oh, yes.
This is a very cool, layered, like really interesting structure book and a big book to sink into. So if you're looking for one of those,
here you found it.
So Iris is our main character, and she starts the book by saying that her sister Laura drove her car off a bridge a few days after World War II ended, and she died. And that was quickly ruled an accident. Then we shift to a book within a book called The Blind Assassin. And it's a story about two lovers meeting in secret. And while they're meeting, the man starts telling sci-fi stories to his lover that sort of illustrate what they're going through. So there's all these layers of story happening already, right? And that book, we learned, that book within a book, The Blind Assassin, was written by Laura. And it became a cult classic. So people around the world, go to Laura's grave constantly and lay flowers on her grave for this, classic book. And so much so that Iris, late in her life, is still continually fielding awards and recognition on Laura's behalf. Which is kind of complicated because she knows that her sister Laura was very tortured. And she knows a lot of other secrets too. So we start digging into Iris's backstory. She was the daughter of a very wealthy man in Canada who married off his daughter to another wealthy dude so that they could consolidate their fortunes.
Yes.
And of course, that guy turns out to be a major asshole.
That's surprising.
Yeah. Who lies, who isolates Iris, and does some shady stuff with Laura. We also meet a communist sympathizer and revolutionary who both the sisters grow attached to, and they hide at some point from the authorities as well. And we're moving forward and backward in time to assemble this whole picture of the two sisters, of the war, the men in their lives, and where this book came from, as well as getting to read this book, The Blind Assassin. And there's so many structures. There's that book, there's newspaper clippings, there's the transcripts, there's the narrative, and there's a lot of major twists along the way too. And I chose it for this theme because for much of the book, we're in Iris's head in present day as an old woman. And she's looking back in time and using her years of experience to tell a true story of the events that up to this point have been sort of shrouded in lies and shrouded in mystery. And she's decided it's time.
Yeah.
We got to tell everything. And there's been a lot of pain. There's been a lot of estrangement in her life. There's been betrayal. But she also, by living through this all, has become a whole person, where before she was just someone that other people ordered around. And so there's sadness in discovering that, in owning yourself, but there's also a chance to finally tell your truth. So it's a really engrossing story that, fits along this theme and also is just super unique in the way that it's told too.
Yeah. Love that. Love the different. I was just thinking that if someone was new to Margaret Atwood, that you could go back through our catalog on the ones you've recommended. That would be a good place to start.
Indeed.
So just, VIP tip there. I like it when it's like tips that are very obvious and then you somehow create like a mystique.
Yeah, it may be obvious, but I'm a Margaret Atwood fan.
Yes.
And always have been. And I've recommended a number of her books. And I have more still on the list.
But I think that's great. That'd be a great way to because, sometimes people want to get into something, but the catalog's so big or they think, is there an order or am I supposed to read certain things? Yeah. So, exactly. Well, my fiction pick this week is called Tell Me an Ending by Joe Harkin. And this was published in March 2022. And the book starts with a question. What if you didn't have to live with your worst memories?
Oh, shit.
Yes. So this is the conflict at the heart of this book. Noor, who is a psychologist working at a memory revival clinic in London, and they conduct a process that allows them to only delete a bad memory you want to forget.
Oh.
When you come out of the procedure, you have no memory of the memory or the procedure. And they've worked with medical clinics, all this stuff. It's basically hidden from you. Like you would have no way to find out that this happened.
Oh my God.
So that it's completely erased, right? So a landmark lawsuit has gone through the courts and it's put the clinic on its heels because they're now required to notify thousands of people that they chose to have a memory removed. And if they would like it back, they can have a procedure to have the memory returned.
Oh my God.
So there's all these outcrying, like, what do I do? Like, should I have it? I mean, the old me obviously took it out for a reason, but what is it? Is this some defining part of me I'm missing? So from there, we follow characters that are grappling with this decision. Like, why did I choose that? Do memories make up my personality? There's all these kind of philosophical questions at the heart of this. So first we follow Finn, whose wife receives the notification that she had a memory removed, and they didn't speak about it. So he has no idea what it is. And she has no idea what it is. And they're struggling to decide if she's going to go through with it and get it back. He suspects it's that she had an affair.
Yeah,
and so his mind is going crazy because he's adding all these scenarios of things it could be. And she's struggling with the idea, like, I don't want it for a reason, but I don't know what that reason is because I have no basis. Then we follow May, who's a troubled grad school dropout, who is starting to have little flashes and visions of a place that she doesn't have any memory of visiting.
Oh my God.
And so she's starting to think that there's something going on and that she's trying to get the memory back naturally. She's trying to retrace and see if she can get it back. William, a former police officer, is struggling with PTSD. And it's ruining his marriage. It's ruining his family life. And it started with a murder or a death that wasn't really all that shocking. It shouldn't have been the thing that sent him over the edge. But he has this gnawing feeling that it was triggering something else. But he doesn't know what it is.
Oh, God.
So he doesn't know if he should, get the memory back or not. And complicating his is that he's a police officer, and so there were certain laws around it that if they were involved in a case, they couldn't have it removed. So he convinces himself it's not about a case, because then he wouldn't have been able to have it removed.
Otherwise he broke the law. Yeah.
He's like, he thinks it might be his dad. He's going through all kinds of things, and it's driving his wife crazy. Like, they're both just struggling. We follow Oscar, who's this super handsome guy that travels the world, really has no idea who he is. He's got mountains of money. He knows that he has money, like crazy amounts of money. He can go anywhere he wants, but he feels like he's on the run and he doesn't know why. And he's super paranoid. Every time he sees people, he's like, should I be running? Is this the time that the other shoe drops? So this book is twisty, but it's also incredibly touching. I'll be honest, I cried at multiple points, especially as some of these stories come to conclusions. And I think it raises so many interesting questions, and not just about like technology and advances, but also just about what we fundamentally believe makes up a person or molds a person. Because we put a lot of value in the idea that even bad things make us better. Like, hey, I might be better. But then there's a lot of people that say, yeah, but a lot of us are tortured by horrible things. So what if we could remove that?
Yeah, what if we had that choice? Yeah.
And could live without the feeling or without those strings. So I picked for this theme because all of the characters have gone through things that made them stronger in a lot of ways. But some of them don't know where the strength came from, or don't know if they would be stronger if they had a chance to know it, or if this is the best version of themselves, what they're looking at right now. So I tore through this book. I loved it. And I thought it was such an interesting premise. In a weird way, it doesn't sound that far off. Like it wouldn't be. It
totally doesn't.
Wouldn't be that. There's some other characters in there that play a part that are really interesting and bring up a lot of questions. It's like anything else, there's some money issues involved and, corporate greed. So it's twisty, but it stuck with me. Like, I thought about it a lot.
That sounds amazing. I'm going to put that on my list.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like everything about that, like what is your identity if you don't have some of the memories that make you up?
Right. And they all know that it's negative because they had it removed.
Yeah.
So they're all aware that it's something that they didn't want to remember. So it's also that thing, like, how much do you trust your old self? Like, have you
can
grown?
You handle the curiosity of not knowing?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Have you grown enough as a person that the person now would make a different decision?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Would you have memories removed?
I don't know. I've really thought about it. Yeah, I struggle because I tend to be in the camp that, like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of thing.
But we often say that because we don't have a choice too. Like we have to find a way to rationalize some of the bad shit that's happened to us because we can't. I mean, sometimes I think our mind does that work for us. It blocks things out that we don't want to remember. But yeah,
and that's not Oscar, William's wife. That's her argument a lot, is like, you need to do traditional routes, go to therapy, like do what you can do without having to have things removed.
Yeah.
Because before he gets the notification, he's considering having the memory of this last crime that he worked on removed because he doesn't understand that he had something else previously removed because he has no memory of it. And then he gets this notification from the clinic that he already had something removed. So now he's like in a double kind of, wow, like, what do I do with this?
And where do you stop too? Like, I mean, how we categorize what's good and bad in our memories is so relative anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good one. I was very propulsive because you really want to know. I mean, you get curious yourself, but you're also just sort of left with the same feelings they have. The whole time that the characters are talking, you're like, yeah, what are you going to do?
I can see a problem if you had your memories removed. And that is you would show up to a recording session one day and I wouldn't realize that you had removed something. And then I start talking about it and you are completely flummoxed. Yeah. You have no idea what I'm talking about. And then our podcast has to come to an end.
And then it's over. Why would I have the podcast? That'd be terrible. It wouldn't be a bad memory.
I don't know. But maybe there'd be something that we've talked about before that you have cut out of your memory. And then and I'm like Heavesgate. You have cut Heavesgate out of your mind. Yes. And so then I tried to remind you of it and you're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I refuse to continue.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Why would you say that about me? Mm-hmm. I have never puked straight for 24 hours.
There's also a discussion there about like kind of the spectrum of bad memories.
Yeah.
Like Nora, the psychologist that works there at one point is considering kind of unethically asking another person to just take out a memory of someone that she used to date. Because she's tired of thinking about it. But it's not really like
it's not as necessarily bad.
Right. Horrible thing. And then you have other things, that are way further on the spectrum. That's
a good point too. Like what if you just start taking that to the things that just cause you pain that aren't necessarily bad, but a grief, like maybe you cut out memories of someone that's died, but that person had a big impact on your life. And,
right.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
and it's weird to think it would be completely gone because no one has any idea that you had it removed.
Ugh.
So especially if it's something that you've just held inside and never, shared. Yeah. It's a whirlwind. Honestly, it could have been another 300 pages and I would have just kept going. I will be checking into our backlist. I can tell you that.
Excellent.
Because it was a doozy.
Well, even though you've already read it, I'm adding that to my list.
Yeah, you should. I thought of you quite a few times that you would like it. Yeah.
I love the sci-fi aspect as well as what that means for humanity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for other genre pick, I've got an equally sort of mind-blowing one and like propulsive and all the things. It's called Blow Your House Down, a story of family, feminism, and treason by Gina Frangello. And this came out in 2021. Have you heard about this one?
Yes.
Okay. So right off the bat, Gina tells us that this is a memoir, by the way. And she tells us that she is an adulterer. And because she's a woman, she is so much more guilty than a man. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And so we learned that Gina grew up in a poor and violent neighborhood in Chicago. And when we pick up her story, she's actually living back in that neighborhood. She's in her 40s. She's taking care of her children, her husband, and her ailing parents. So she's part of that sandwich generation, right?
Yeah.
Like you got both ends going. And life is going on, as it does for women sort of giving constant caregiving, where she's kind of effectively erased. And then her best friend dies and something shakes loose for her. And there's a guy that she's been emailing, someone that she knows professionally, but who over the years she's grown very close to. And they start a very intense affair. And as she connects with this new man, she starts to a few things. She starts to see and understand her husband as a little bit different. She starts to really understand the violent outbursts that he's prone to and the anger that's always there and this weird men's group that he's a part of and comes home like spouting stuff as. And she knows that he loves her tremendously, but he also hurts her a lot. And so she hadn't really, because of how she grew up, she hadn't really thought much about that. That's just how he is, kind of thing. And of course, as affairs happen, it's found out, of course, and it blows up her life. But that is just the beginning of the story, because then her parents start worsening in their health. She herself gets sick with breast cancer. Her husband starts lashing out in some really public and twisted ways, and her lover descends into depression. And it's all this powder keg that keeps building and building and building until it threatens to either implode or explode out and make things potentially even worse. So it's this intense and so well-written and beautiful memoir. I love how it's organized too. And I think it sort of also examines like how we as women are sort of caged by these stories that we have to sacrifice ourselves. We have to erase ourselves. We have to just sort of live with violence and how you might choose a different path. So I chose it for this theme because she goes through it. She thought she'd created this idyllic life, happy family, close with her parents, very far from what she grew up with still, but then it all comes crashing down, but then she comes out of it and she's learned a lot from it. And I think there is something to be said. It's a tricky thing to say that all the bad things that have happened to you have made you stronger, because then that sort of minimizes the things that maybe you've lived through, right? And you don't want to do that. Yes. You don't want to belittle some of the really bad shit that you've been through.
Absolutely.
But because we have no other choice, we can't erase our memories. We have to sort of tell ourselves stories about how it has made us stronger. And I'm sure in many cases it has. And, if we don't learn from those experiences, then life may not be all we want it to be. Right.
Yeah.
And so this is a story like that. And you may or may not expect the ending. It was a wild ride, but it was also really, really deep and thoughtful. And I got a lot out of it.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
See, now I'm going to put that on my list.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for my other genre pick, I am going to recommend The 90s by Chuck Klosterman.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this was just published in February. And, I've been a fan of his for a long time.
Yes.
I always pick up his new one. And when I found out he was writing one and then releasing one about the 90s, I was like, come on, that is it. And it did not disappoint.
Excellent.
It is a collection of essays. And in, true fashion, he manages to tie a lot of pop culture iconic moments in the 90s with the knowledge that it might actually, in a lot of ways, be the single most remarkable decade in terms of societal change. Because he said people kind of our generation are straddled the biggest changes in society that any other generation had. Yeah. And one of the simple examples he gives are how we got music. When we started out, it was tapes. And you had to make a mixtape off the radio or whatever. It progressed to CDs. That's not that big of a change. You're still getting a physical thing that you're getting music on. And even the tape isn't that big of a change from a record, right?
Or from an 8-track or all of those things. Yeah.
It's just a physical thing. You're buying the whole album. It's a process. You go to a store, you buy it, bring it home. But then from the CD, we started jumping to things like the iPod and then jumping to things like Spotify and streaming services, and that's all within our lifespan. So when you think that we started out with cassette tapes and now we just have music, and even how downloading music started. I mean, you paid per song. It's an interesting way to look at that decade, and there's a lot of examples across that. Another one that he gives is how many of us sat at home, we couldn't leave because we were waiting for a phone call.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely.
Waiting for the landline to ring. And now we live in a generation where you take your phone to the bathroom. It's on you all the time. It's absurd to think that you wouldn't be reachable. So much so that even now, when we're on vacations and stuff, any place can always reach out because you have that device right there. But that all happened within our generation and time frame. So he kind of is... The way that he ties that together is really interesting. It's also fun because it's nostalgic in a lot of ways to think back at some of the big moments that now don't seem that big of a deal compared to, what happens today. But when you look back on it with a different lens and you're older and you're like, geez, that was wild when you think about it. So I loved it. I think that, there's so many great examples that you're going to think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. If you're not home on Thursday night to see Seinfeld, you just missed it.
You're screwed.
Yeah. You didn't have DVR. A lot of people didn't even have VCRs to record it. And what's interesting about that is that he said statistically, Seinfeld episodes still have the highest number of viewers, bigger than most TV that's huge now because everything's on demand.
Yeah.
So we can watch it whenever.
So all the numbers are fractured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it was that, there was no replay of that Seinfeld episode. You saw it then or you didn't see it. And there's so many things that you kind of forget because we've just moved forward. So he writes about films, music, sports, TV, politics, and all kinds of changes regarding race, class, and sexuality. And it's all within these essays that kind of, divide those into different parts. I picked this for this theme because I think to fully understand your own personal strength, you kind of have to understand where you came from.
Yes.
And you kind of have to understand sometimes your roots, how does that play a part in who you are and some of your preconceived notions. I think we have to know where we come from sometimes just to overcome bias. So we understand that maybe that wasn't good information I got back then. Yes, that's ingrained in me, but maybe it shouldn't be. So I think Also, I liked it because of this line, like, I might be better. It's just, it fits. Like, I might be better from the 90s. I might not. I don't know. Here we are. But also because if someday, it probably won't be Chuck Klosterman, but somebody wrote a book about, 2020, I would imagine Lizzo would feature.
Lizzo would feature. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. She would be a shining moment.
Yeah.
In the 2020s.
Much better than, say, I don't know, Vanilla Ice. So I think it's entertaining, it's thought-provoking, and it's the best kind of nostalgic all-in-one.
That's fantastic. It does feel like there's this huge 90s like nostalgia right now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's even shifting into early 2000s, as the younger people get older. But yeah, I mean, even in fashion and everything else. So it's very topical. It's very timely.
Yes. He talks, some of the ones about politics are so interesting if you think about, we're so used to having 24-hour news cycles and things hitting Twitter and the internet all the time. So you can get things on demand, boom, boom, boom. So things can change in an hour. But that wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. And so when he talks about 90s politics, and you really have to realize that there's a gap between this news story and the next news story coming out, and how much can change and how much influence some of those things had.
Yeah.
So how much, journalism had some real impacts at that time because it was the only way to get that information. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's just an interesting way to look back on some of that stuff.
It also gives thinking the show you recommended, Pam and Tommy, it gives some context to that and the environment that happened in, and how that's, it would be a different scandal today than it would be then because of how far things have traveled. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It would be, you wouldn't have, I don't think, the outpouring of anger for those two or for her in particular. I think we would also have questions about the guy who stole it, which doesn't seem to be
at the time we completely ignored.
Yeah, we were just like, oh, cool.
Had no idea who posted it, didn't care.
Yeah.
Pamela was a joke. That's all that came out of it.
That's all that mattered.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Well, it sounds wonderful.
It's great. And in all of his books, you can skip around. Like if there's a chapter you're like, hey, I don't really want to read about the 90s rap scene. Okay. I wouldn't recommend. I loved all of them. So I wouldn't say you need to skip around, but yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, for pop culture, I have got a quick show, 7 episodes, each about a half hour on HBO Max, called Somebody Somewhere. This came out earlier this year, and if you don't know Bridget Everett, you should. So she's another figure, I feel like Lizzo, that's just a bright light in a weird world. Mm-hmm. And part of that is she has been known as sort of a cabaret singer, a comedian, anything that she's in, she elevates in a really interesting way. Mm-hmm. And here she is the main character. And she plays a woman named Sam, who is a woman in her 40s, who comes back to her small Kansas hometown to take care of her dying sister. And we meet her a few months after her sister has died. And Sam is just sort of stuck. She's still living in the town. She's grading papers at this super depressing test center. She's very isolated. She has a family that doesn't really want to talk about the dead sister, especially the fact that she was gay. And then one day Sam starts talking to one of her work colleagues, Joel. And it turns out they went to high school together and they were in show choir together. And he remembers Sam as being this beautiful singer and amazing performer. And he always thought she would go out and do amazing things. And so he's curious about, her singing and performing. So he invites her to what he calls choir practice, which is a sort of underground cabaret that draws a lot of gay folks, a lot of outsiders, a lot of misfits. And it's people performing, people singing. And Sam remembers the first time she gets behind a microphone how much she loves this and how much she wanted to be a performer, and how she even created a demo at one point but was too afraid to share it, and how she used to have this voice and it's been sort of silenced since then. So over the course of the season, she embraces this new group of friends. She gets really excited about singing again, and she starts to dig into why she's been stuck and why her family is falling apart. There's her mom, who's got a hidden drinking problem. There's her dad, who's a struggling farmer and, a very manly man who hides all his feelings, but it's threatening to come out. Her sister, who is a homophobe, but who goes on a sort of journey that's really interesting. And I chose it for this theme because I think Sam is the epitome of living through some shit, getting stuck, and then coming out the other side, potentially better for it. Might be better.
I might be better.
And it's not clean. It's not easy. There's still a lot of problems, but you see her blossom and you see her, gain more confidence in herself. And I think it's super sweet. It's super funny. There's sadness, some really nice bittersweet sadness, and all the things. And I can't recommend it enough. It's a quick watch, like I said. You will fall in love with her. You will fall in love with Joel. You will fall in love with everyone at choir practice.
I can't wait.
And there you go.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, for my pop culture this week, I'm going to recommend a podcast. It's called Something Was Wrong. It's produced by AudioChuck, hosted by Tiffany Reese. And essentially, it's a podcast. Tiffany interviews people that now they're on the other side of a relationship and realized, okay, there were some red flags. Like these things happened and then it escalated into this. And it's not supposed to be like a blaming, like you miss things. It's just this, these were things I noticed after the fact.
Yeah.
So their tagline is that it is a true crime docuseries about the discovery, trauma, and recovery from shocking life events and abusive relationships. So there's multiple seasons. Sometimes the seasons are just like one-off episodes where she's just interviewing one person. They tell the story. She kind of interjects. There's a couple seasons that the whole season is about one story because it was so in-depth.
Wow.
One that I'm thinking of that stuck with me is a family who suffered the suicide of their father, and they found out that the people that were their best friends forever, they grew up with the kids, they were around for the funeral, everything, he was having an affair with the mother of that, and she was so mentally ill that she had such control and power over him. I mean, he had given her money. There were so many things.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was insane. And they interview like his son, his daughter-in-law, her, the widow, so many things. And it's really an interesting story. It's an interesting story to think about. I think our reaction sometimes is say, like, I wouldn't fall for that. Like, I wouldn't get sucked into that, right? But when you hear sometimes the progression or the buildup or sometimes the trust we give and just think, well, they're just having a bad day or whatever. It's fascinating. I like, the one-offs are great too because there's just some great stories in there. Sometimes they're very extreme, there's violence, murder, those types of things. Sometimes it's just a matter of like, I got away from that guy, thank goodness.
Wow.
Or I got away from her, thank goodness. So really interesting, crazy, but also like you can't stop listening. It's fascinating.
The idea of like a close call with true crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or defining it on a smaller scale than what we're used to.
Yeah. And I think that I picked it for this because it's a lot, but it's also kind of hopeful in a way because you're meeting these people on the other side. And so they do talk a lot about like what they did afterwards to heal, or Tiffany, the host, does a really good job of always bringing up resources or books to read or things like that could help if you feel like you're going through the same thing.
That's great.
So it's really interesting format, I think, to hear about these kind of horrific things, but then also be hopeful at the end.
Yeah.
So it is kind of the embodiment of like, I might be better.
But also, I feel like each of our things has talked a little bit about the storytelling that we do in order to make things make sense.
Yes.
Because so many times bad things happen to us and they just don't make sense until we find some way to make sense of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that she does a really good job as a host of not putting the victim in the part where they have to like defend themselves the whole time. Because sometimes, that can happen in like a true crime thing. Like, how'd you not see that?
Yeah. What were you doing wrong?
Right. She does a really good job of helping that person tell the story without it being in a like blaming way. Like, why didn't you tell someone? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I think I would hope that in 2022 we're far enough along to realize that there's a lot of other factors that go into manipulation and abusive relationships and crazy events like that it's not easy to see from the outside. We don't always have all the context.
Yeah. And that idea, I've thought about that a lot the last few years, especially as we've been doing this podcast of like, I would never get caught up in something, or I would make better choices or whatever. Like, I think it's another form of storytelling where we're saying like, we're too smart for that, or we would, everyone else is kind of dumb, and we would, better understand that, which is just lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think
it makes me think. I don't remember if this was in college. I think somebody in a class one time compared like the human brain to like how squirrels hide nuts, and then they go back. I know this is weird, but they go back, but sometimes they forget. And I think that we sometimes underestimate our ability to like just cut something out of our brain.
Yeah.
Like we just forget. Like I buried that. I don't know where it is. Like we are so willing to believe certain people that hold importance in our life, or we're told that hold importance, that then we're like, meh, I don't have to. I'm not going to examine that any further.
That's a good point. We hide it, and then we forget that where we hid it, and then we forget that we did hide it.
Yeah. And then maybe sometime you stumble along it and you're like, oh, wow.
Look at this nut. Oh, my God.
Yeah. But, and I'm saying that, too, because there's stories of, like, parents that were manipulative, those in the podcast. And so it's that, how many of us have, we have some crazy family story we remember, extended family or whatever. And we're like, yeah, no one ever talked about that. It's just the nut we buried. Like, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Or we remember it not one way, and then years down the line, the nut comes out, and you're like, wait, I see that differently now. Oh, that nut was actually like a bigger thing.
Yeah.
That was like.
Okay, so that wasn't a nut I buried. Yeah. That was a live body.
Easily confused. Squirrel nuts and dead bodies.
So easy.
Yeah. I constantly run up against that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm always like, where are the bodies?
Well, I think next steps for our listeners are to, if you haven't already, immediately go watch this video.
Yeah. I mean,
and then you'll say about damn time that I watched this.
Yeah, we're saying that right now to you. It's about damn time you get on this train and go watch it. And then after you watch a video, if you haven't watched her SNL episode, go ahead and do that.
Oh my God, we haven't even talked about that.
No, it was amazing.
It was so good. And you could tell even when people, like the rest of the cast was breaking throughout, it's because everyone was having a good time.
So much fun. And I can't tell you how much I loved that Andrew Dismukes was like paired with her every time. It was like he found the perfect role for him.
Yes, which I would not have expected would be him.
Did not expect that.
But
it was everything that I wanted it to be.
Maybe what we should also do for our listeners, and when I say we, I mean me, because I'll be doing this, is including a few links to SNL, our favorite SNL clips.
I think so. I think that's a good idea.
That's a nice little gift for you, listener.
I know. I'm trying to think now. We talked about a couple of them.
The orchestra one, I still watch regularly.
Yeah, the orchestra one was great.
And the Please Don't Destroy, where she has
writer's
writer's
block.
block.
Was the one. That was one of my favorite. Please don't. They do a great job. I'm telling you.
Of integrating the host. Too.
Yes. Yeah. And they always come up with something, off fairly weird and great.
Yeah. I also like that in her monologue, she chose, because I remember a while ago, we talked about the fact that she was creating the rumor that she was with Chris Evans.
Yes.
And that she was pregnant with Chris Evans' baby. And then she chose her SNL monologue to double down on that. And to go for it.
Down.
And like, you are manifesting. This is what happens. This is what manifesting is supposed to be.
Yes.
Because you're going to marry Chris Evans.
Yes.
And you're going to have beautiful babies.
I don't want to give the lady, I think it was a lady that wrote The Secret, like any more accolades. But if she ends up having Chris Evans' baby, I mean,
listen, Lizzo will be able to then brand her own form of manifesting. Yeah. It will be something else that she can name besides The Secret, and I will sign on for that.
Yes.
Maybe it's a cult. I'll be in Lizzo's cult.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care. Every time you say Lizzo, I hear it the way that Cardi B says it in that song.
Lizzo!
Oh, it always echoes in my head that way. I'm like, oh, that's terrific. I love it. I love it
so you're saying I sound like Cardi B?
Yeah. I was giving you Cardi B vibes.
I like
Cardi
it.
Cardi B vibes.
Yep.
Woo.
That's a tough one. Just like 113. Tough to say.
Hey, we're here doing the hard work. Numbers are hard. Work is hard.
I'm doing the hard work for you.
I mean, we're recording on a different day, so
it feels weird, right?
It
feels like we're sort of off.
We're
on a different day. We're at a different time than normal.
Yeah.
It feels a little strange.
I think we came in a little hot because we were on a different day.
We did.
We came in
Didn't
hot.
expect to talk about Supreme Court nonsense, but we did.
Yeah.
Because we came in hot because we're coming off a work week.
Yes.
We're still in the middle of a work day.
Yeah.
And
it's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird.
And yeah, I think all the frustration of
it's just bubbling.
Work
it's just
stuff.
Bubbling. Mm-hmm.
We came in hot.
I do have one thing I wanted to suggest that we start doing.
Let's hear it.
And I learned this from my grandson.
Okay.
Just like within the last 24 hours.
Okay.
He has started, when he comes into his room, puffing his chest out and just yelling until he stops running. So he puts his arms back, puffs his chest out, and he's like, ah! Until he gets into the room. And I think that might be the most genius way to enter a room. Could there be anything more confident?
That is confidence.
Like, I'm coming and I know you want to see me, so I'm announcing my arrival.
I'm announcing my presence. I'm getting you ready. I'm getting you hyped up.
Yeah. You're your own hype man. Also, you have so much energy, you can't really slow down. And then it's just yelling. It's not words, not anything, just yelling. And then just stops and acts like this is everything continues as normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about if you did that.
That's a terrific entrance. Now, how would we modulate that for an entrance here on the podcast? Because people wouldn't be able to see us puffing our chest.
I think maybe if we ran into the room, you'd hear the footsteps.
We had the mics on, and then we just
yell, so it's not right.
We're coming.
We're coming in.
We're Broads and Bucks.
Yeah.
It's episode 113.
Yeah.
11D3.
11D3.
I think this is going to continue, by the way.
I think so.
The trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I love it. I've been thinking about it, how to incorporate it in my everyday life. And
Jax.
Talking about Lizzo gave me the confidence to say, you know what?
Yeah.
I need to enter a room like I belong there.
We need to channel the 1-year-old.
1-year-old and Lizzo together.
Yeah.
But, I mean, until you figure out your own entrance, in the meantime.
Happy reading.